Welcome to chapter 3. We're gonna create a front end host this time in this section, and this project will be the project which actually accepts the plugins, and then you will add plugins to this one. So think of the host project as a project which has a lot of functionalities itself, and then you're adding or extending it via plugins. Now, there is another mindset while creating such projects is that why not everything become itself a plugin? But that might end up a bit hard or difficult, and then based on the need, you will create a scenario which just can extend a little bit rather than everything becomes a plugin itself, and your main project is just a hosting project. So before we get into the code section, I'd like to say what we need here. We need to register hooks and routes, at least two things. So every plugin will add probably its own screen, like in a minimum level. So depends on your software, depends on your project, might add an action, might add a menu, might add a lot of things, right? And the minimum thing I decided is just a route, which is basically a screen, and a hook system. This is not a React hook, it's not related to that. It's like an event that you register a hook for it, and if a callback is registered for that, it will be executed, as we have seen in the previous chapter. So first of all, we need a place to store the hooks and routes from plugins. So we need to recognize the plugins. We need to register plugin mechanism. So a plugin is added as file or into a URL somewhere else. And then we need a mechanism to basically register that. Also, we need a host API definition shared between plugins and the host, which is discussed in the previous chapter. It's very important we document everything, and it doesn't matter how great the system you're creating is without a proper documentation. So using something like Dockerus or something similar can help a lot to document what your API system is offering. Also, you need to like create all events for each screen, as again discussed earlier. That's very important between host and plugin. Create things as plugin from the beginning if that's the way to go. This is also something you want to consider if you uh, think this system is not really that much providing itself. Rather, there are plugins. So like you create the authentication as a plugin, you create dashboard as a plugin, but this is really needs to be decided on the job. Uh, and you have not last but not least, provide a lot of details where your host API, even it's not planned now. So even if you think, oh, who's gonna use this hook? Who's gonna care if input got focused, for example, or a page has been triggered? Like people will care at some point. If you want to have a system which works for 20 years, 30 years, you need to consider that. All right, so let's go to the code section for this. As you can find the project files, workshop files inside my website, as I mentioned. Maybe just say it again, maybe you're not watching at the same time. So if you go to the workshops, React and Go plugin system, here there will be the files for you to download. Now I'm recording it, obviously it's not there yet, but there will be, so you can download it. Going back to the host project now. I'm again not gonna explain, like recreate this whole thing from beginning. The interesting part is the white config is not touched at all. We don't care, like we don't have a new build system, we don't have a new plugin to our package.json. Nothing has been installed. There is nothing needed. That's why we are also avoiding module federation and all those things, because plain simple JavaScript actually works perfectly fine. In our app.tsx, I have decided to like dynamically add the routes. So instead of putting the routes one below each other, because our system is going to modify how many routes is visible to the app, we need to have them dynamically loaded. So I have a use hook, which we will get into it, and it's gonna show how many routes are there. And in the end, they will be rendered as sidebar as well as like actual route themselves. In the main, we have hooks provider. This is again not the React hook. This is the hook system and event system added to that. And very important is that we are adding React and React DOM as global objects. So if I don't do this, the app will crash. The plugin will crash basically because it can't find React. If you don't remember, watch the previous chapter. We excluded React from the plugin. We assume it's going to be available globally. And now you can argue that a lot, that might be not perfect solution or whatsoever, but it works very fine. And if you can maintain the React version, the plugin sizes will be extremely small. Actually, we can check it here. How large is this? Let's go open containing folder. And then our plugin is like 150 kilobytes. That's because of the React color picker. That's not because of our code. So if we excluded that one, it would be like 1 kilobyte or something. All right. What else we have here to discuss? Host API. I haven't discussed it. We have used it in previous chapter. It's a definition, a contract, which a plugin writer, the person who writes a plugin, knows about the host system, knows about the product. Think of it, this is an AutoCAD. And then we're saying a route, if you want to add a route in your plugin, you have to specify a path, a label for it, and a component, like which component in React will be rendered for it. And this is a contract we are sending to the plugin. And then we have a hook callback. So like a hook can have many arguments, and then return is void, or even better is any, because you could return from the hook anything. Like you can return a string, you can return whatsoever else, and you might not return anything. Depends on the hook definition, how you define it. You have to document it and tell the people, hey, this hook is like having this one. And you cannot put it inside your code base because you don't know what other plugins are having hooks. It's just very dynamic operation. This is the host API itself. One important thing is the register route we have seen in the plugin section and exposed, which are registering a route. It basically adds a screen for us. So we could easily like copy paste and add another route, and I would call this page 2, and the route is basically, who knows, let's say page 2 to it. I'm gonna build this in a second. Sorry, we need to go to plugin, npm run build plugin. And we see that after a refresh, hopefully comes here, like we have added that thing there. Now, obviously it works with any React component. You can put a different component. Again, I'm gonna build the plugin and go to this page, and so should be by now, yeah, page 2. You see, like that's perfectly working fine. Let's go back to the host. Obviously, we need to unregister a route again. When we register a route, we have to unregister it, because if you don't unregister that, it's like from the use effect, if you didn't like clean up a timeout, at least in the React development section, you will see it twice coming up, and it might have memory leaks, like a lot of bad things happens. Just take it from me. This section now is very important to see if there is a hook. We register a hook as we have done in the plugin. Let's go here. That on BMI calculated, we want this thing happen. And we have, again, unregistering the hook and calling the hook. So we can call a hook this host API is shared between host and plugin. So plugin can call a hook, and also host can call a hook, which is happening actually in our app. In the home, we will get to plugin manager, but let's go real quick to the home screen. I have this BMI calculator as the home screen here. So what it does is very simple. It just takes your height, which is 170, and then your weight, and then calculate it like you are underweight or overweight or whatsoever. It's a very simple calculation. You can check that what is a BMI. That doesn't mean anything special. It's just once we are submitting the form, like calculate BMI, I'm calculating the category, like the value, and then I have this function. Instead of setting the state as set category directly, I'm calling this on BMI calculated. So this function doesn't matter. It's just a callback. I decided to make the same name to make it easier. But here what important thing happens is we are having this function called has hook, and we are checking if the on BMI calculated exists. Then we will call it and modify the value, and then we are setting the category. So I'm directly changing the argument here. It's totally safe to do that, though you might not like to do it. The point is you need to have this callback and the name of it. And then in the plugin section, I have registered that hook. It's gonna use this hook instead. Let's go for, I close this one because it's confusing me all the time, and maybe also close this HTML5 real quick. I like to add another hook in order to show it. So when I input a weight, I like to have another hook which like console logs or whatever happens, just an extra hook. When an entry happens, like set weight, now instead of setting weight directly, I like to call this set weight like this, and then use set weight this way. Value is a string because user is typing. You should not convert this to number, by the way. It's gonna hurt the typing mechanism, but probably by now you already have experienced this issue. So I'm gonna again do if has hook, let's say on BMI weight entered. Then I'm gonna call this hook, call hook on BMI weight entered with the value of value, just the first argument. And else I am gonna, or not else, like let's forget about the else. Let's go set weight and then value. So as you see, like this is a hook we created now without defining it anywhere. And then in the plugin section, I like to go and create register this hook, API.register hook. This one function value is a string, and then all I want to do is a console log weight entered and value. Obviously we need to rebuild this. You see, like this is how much hassle it is to rebuild this all the time. Imagine, like this is one of the best architectures I have seen. Like a lot of problem projects, you have to link it, you have to publish it to npm, get it, GitHub, God knows how much hassle, and then they don't run directly. But anyway, that's not what we're discussing here. So we put 180, we put 90. You see, when the plugin is enabled, the weight entered is 910. So I like to do one more thing with extend this. How can we extend this? So I like to prevent this kind of a validation here, and if the call hook returns null, I want to prevent that from happening. So let's say if call hook equals to null, then we will return it. What happens is we are going to check this, go 180, then 233, whatever. Now in plugin, we know if we return null, nothing is going to happen. Let's go to the plugin, and I'm going to say if plus value is greater than 100, then return null. Like that is, like we don't want to even allow something more than 100 to be entered. Now if I go here and then enter 23, see, like I can't even enter more than like 100, and that's preventing it from happening. And that's the beauty of the plugin. So if I had no plugin at all, and let's go real quickly into the index.html, and I'm going to disable this plugin, we will reach this part as well. The app still works as expected. I can enter whatever it is. And then when I enable this plugin, I'm having this 180 and I can't even enter more than this. Like I like to enter 99 and see what happens. Okay, so I can go up to 100, can come down, but then I can't go even more than that. This validation is working perfectly fine via a plugin. Getting back to the host, I like to explain this one, why we are having these plugins enabled into this script here first, not inside the React context. One thing we defined is plugins enabled here. And the reason for that is a global thing is when we are loading this from a server, I will put a placeholder here, like for example, like inject plugins, which is a special placeholder, like this is a specific word, and I'm going to replace that in the backend with an array of enabled plugins in the backend side. Now you might think, okay, the front end knows about the plugins. In practice, it's not like that. You have a backend app, which you will upload the plugins to that, and that backend decides which plugins is enabled for you. And even also think about it, like you have multiple tenants. One user has a plugin, the other user doesn't have that. So we're just telling the client in a very simple manner that which plugins are enabled, and then they can also go to the location. We define the location of the plugin, and this could be coming from another server, even doesn't matter. It could come from anywhere else. We could inline it, and it doesn't hurt the build system we have. And obviously, in a use effect in the plugin manager, which just right now we will discuss, we go through the plugins, load the plugin, console log it if it's loaded, catch if it's an error, and obviously we're gonna unregister all of the plugins once the app has been terminated. Okay, the layout is very simple. I don't want to discuss this layout. It's just how this host is to the left sidebar and the right content section. That's all about it is. So you have a list here and then a main section which shows the children. The all magic is happening in the plugin manager. So all the code we need, I have put it into a single file, although might be not very like interesting to do that much to put everything in one place. I like to, yeah, just put them all in one place because it's much easier to handle. It's C style guy, but you can split it if you wanted to, and then you could declare the plugins enabled as an array of whatsoever. I just, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna declare window. I'm not sure, but like how to extend the window at the moment. Okay, so we have a base routes. First of all, some routes are already inside the host, and we just want to show them regardless. So we took it easy. We have a base routes, and then we have a state for the routes, and we set them by default. It has the base route. So when we are registering a hook, we have a hook reference, like a map, which has like, what is the hook? What is the callback for? That's simple. And then we set the current to name and the callback. One important thing is we didn't care here was you should be able to register multiple functions for a hook, right? And then you should differentiate if they are returning a value or not. So like five different plugins can listen to the same event and they modify as they want. Now we just put one plugin and it's going to override the previous plugin somehow. And you can work on this function extended, make this an array. And then obviously when you are calling the hook, like you have to deal with the arrays and then pass the value from previous callback to the next callback. Of course, here now the priority matters, and you see like when you're registering the plugins, which one takes the more priority if they're modifying the same value. If the function is a null or void, then that might really not matter that much. So when you're registering a route, we are basically setting the routes again, what it was, and appending in the new route. That's all. When you're unregistering, we are like filtering it, and then we just checking has hook if the name is inside the current ref. Very simple map. And we have a use effect to enable and disable plugins. We iterate through the plugins enabled, just the map to give the data from the backend and have it from a central place. And then there is this hooks context provider, which gives you all the functionality that you need to the app. So obviously the plugin registry is a way that you register plugins a little bit in a global context, because in the setup we have for Iffy is we need to access the global plugin registry. We can't really depend on the register API or call this function directly. It's a default export. It's uncallable from plugin system. And then we check if there is a plugin registry, a global functionality. We pass the register to it, and having this register as a global window plugin registry makes it like these two multiple plugins and hosts can communicate with each other. And that's totally fine to have that. Though you might be considering like if you have multiple plugin systems, then what's going to happen, or but I don't see that's gonna ever be an issue at the moment. One interesting thing is how the loading plugin works. We didn't add anything special. We're just creating a script tag. We are taking the URL, like just reading the URL as a source. And then when it's loaded, we just check if the plugin has been registered itself. Like we know the plugin's name, and then when the script loaded, we expect that automatically quickly that plugin has been like successfully registered. Therefore, we are calling the resolve. And if there is an error on loading the plugin, obviously we are calling reject. So that's all. That's all the magic happens. Like we just take the script, place it there. It communicates through a global object, and we have, bam, a perfect plugin system created without any further like modules or whatsoever. Now I like to build this thing, so I like to avoid having this plugin inside the public folder. And let's go and build this project for a second, because we need to get it ready for the backend part to serve this as a backend project. And then from the backend perspective, we will be doing kind of modifying the plugins via CLI. That's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you for watching to this part. I will be modifying and preparing this file, build it, and then we continue on the backend side in the next video.